Hi, everybody. It's Dan Cirucci. And as promised, I'm here with Christine Flowers. We're running a little late tonight. We're sorry. Christine, I was just explaining. I got stuck on I 95. There was a massive traffic jam because on I 95 near Broad Street coming north, for some reason, the police decided to close the highway and we were on the wrong side of the closure. So just as we were coming up to Broad Street, they were putting out the flares to close down the road. We turned on KYW and they said there was a massive traffic jam because there was police activity on 95, no reason given.
Hmm. You know, I actually heard some sirens tonight. I was walking. I took my evening constitutional down in Society Hill, and I heard some sirens. And I mean, that's not unusual to hear sirens when you're walking through the streets of Philly. But I doubt that this was an accident. I mean, it's not really a shocker in Philadelphia to have irrational detours set up for whatever reason, whoever's famous cousin is in town or something, or maybe Taylor Swift is still hanging out, at the end of her last three concert set. But anyway, I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you got home safely, and happy birthday to beautiful Juliet.
Thank you. We were celebrating Juliet Cirucci's 10th birthday, my granddaughter. And it was very, very nice. And we had delicious gnocchi today in
Mm.
celebration.
Well, I
Yes,
toast your gnocchi and your granddaughter with my glass of Barolo.
thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. And what was I going to say? I just checked on Facebook, and we're there. We're live on Facebook,
Yay.
and yes, and you can, if you go onto Facebook, you can share it so that everybody who watches you on Facebook can see it as well.
Good.
And let's see, we are on Twitter and we are live on Twitter as well. Good.
Yes. And we
So
have a
here we are.
similar fan base. I mean, because we're so much alike, essentially. I think we have the same group of people that, although you don't have as many trolls as I do, because you're much more likable. I'm I'm hated. I'm hated, but that's okay. I like it. I enjoy that.
I know you seem to like cultivate your enemies.
I do.
You
I do. I do.
you you
What is it?
really
Who said keep your friends close and your enemies closer? That wasn't Sun Tzu, was it? I'm not sure.
and you don't seem to take them too seriously.
No, in fact, I have to tell you something funny. There's a guy named I don't even know how you pronounce his name. I think it's Asa or Asa Khalifa, and he's a fairly well-known young African American activist in the city of Philadelphia. And for some reason, everything to him has shades of racism, or there are roots of racism. So he posted something the other day. I've been doing this series of I'm taking a page from Tina Fey when she ridiculed Sarah Palin with her impersonation of Sarah Palin. I decided, Delco Girl does that really well. Let's see. So I've been doing my impersonation of Helen Gim, and I've been posting these little videos. And 2 days ago, Asa responds and he goes, well, I'm not a Helen Gim supporter, but I just think it's horrible the way she's ridiculing and mocking a woman of color, mocking an Asian woman. I'm like, okay, all right. So my mocking tone is like this, Dan. I'm talking about Helen Gim like this. I'm just saying that basically this is the way that she talks. And it's kind of reminds me a little bit of the San Fernando Valley Girl. And, so. And I'm saying to myself, how is it racist to be making fun of a white privileged teenager San Fernando Valley voice? But
Right.
Asa, for him, it's all about the racism angle.
No, it's not like you were speaking with an Asian accent or something, okay?
No, I'm making fun of
Right,
Helen for being such a pretentious woman and
right,
the vocal fry that she talks like this, and it's just so
right.
annoying.
But Christine, we have to talk about this because you really got into this mayoral race situation,
I did.
and you, along with a lot of other uh, people and quite a few friends of mine, um, thought came to the conclusion that because Helen Gim lost, that this was really a great victory for moderation, I guess you might say, if not a victory for conservatism, because when the hell is conservatism ever going to win in Philadelphia anyway? But a victory for, shall we say, moderation and a cause for celebration. And my response to that, and we're still reading stuff that says, "Oh, this was a rebuke to the left. This was a rebuke to the left, and this was a great victory for common sense." And my response to that, and I don't want to be a
Party pooper?
party pooper or a Debbie Downer, but my response to it is not so fast, not so fast, because Helen Gim, excuse me,
Cherelle
Cherelle
Parker?
Parker, Cherelle Parker is a liberal. She's a liberal. Um, she had the support of the Democratic machine in Philadelphia, the Democratic organization, the iron fisted Democratic organization, and the unions. She had big union support, just like Jim Kenney. And so I say, not so fast in the celebrations. What do you say to that, Christine?
Well, first of all, I respect. I would trust you with my life, so I respect everything that comes out of your mouth, and I think you're a very savvy political strategist.
Thank
You've been
you.
in the trenches for decades. You're still a very young man, but you've been around for a long time. So I give a lot of credence to what you're saying,
Uh-huh.
and there's definitely legitimacy to what you're saying. My point has been all along that better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And
Hmm.
we are very familiar with the institutional Democrats, the Bob Brady Democrats, the old guard Democrats, from even the Johnny Doc
Hmm.
Democrats. We know them. We know how
Right,
to operate. We
right.
have been able to coexist, even though they've
Hmm.
made a mess of a lot of things. And I
Hmm.
adore Bob Brady personally. I think he's an amazing human being. But the institutional Democrats in the city of Philadelphia have made a mess of it.
Hmm.
However, you can live alongside of them. They're manageable. The others, the insurgents, the progressives, the ones who are propped up by outsiders like AOC and
Hmm.
Bernie and Jane Fonda and Mark Ruffalo and George Soros's deep pockets, they're dangerous because the institutional Democrats, it's in their name. They're institutionalists. They have an interest in keeping the system the way it is. Although there's a
Hmm.
lot of graft, there's a lot of corruption. It also exists in the Republicans as well. But they have an interest in maintaining the system the way it is, order the way it is. The Helen Gims, to a certain extent, the Rebecca Reinhardt's, although hers was more of a cultural as opposed to a financial um, uh, perspective platform, but the Helen Gims, and there are a lot of Helen Gim like progressives in this city.
Hmm.
They want to burn it down. They want to be like Sherman marching through Atlanta, and they want to rebuild it in their own image. And Danny, across the nation, we have seen the huge damage, the mess that they've made. Pittsburgh, our sister city, our cousin city in Western Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
they fell to the progressives in this this election. And I would have thought it would have been the opposite. I would have expected the guys in the burg, the blue collar union people, to
Yeah.
have maintained their moderate democratic uh, hegemony stronghold. And
Yeah.
they didn't. They fell. That Sarah Innamorato is as radical as they come. And while we did, we have Democrats who were elected, obviously, but the Working Family Party, major defeats. Helen Gim, major defeat. And I know people were saying, well, she came in third, and between Rebecca and Helen, they grabbed around 60% or 50% of the vote. But the important thing is they are fractured. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party is fractured. They're cannibalizing themselves. And we have to want them to do that. They must become irrelevant. They are dangerous. They are toxic. They will kill us. And so if electing a pro modified stop and frisk, pro hiring more police, Philly girl, born and raised in the city of Philadelphia, who does have significant ties with unions, but also with politicians, city council, state rep. If that is the way that we're going to stop the progressives, I'm very happy about it. And she's not scary. She's not a scary Democrat. So that's where I'm coming
Do
from.
you think she's going to do what she says she's going to do? Do you think that, because Jim Kenney came in as the same kind of candidate? Okay. He had the same support. He came in as the same kind of candidate. This is what I'm saying. And then once he was in office, he basically listened to what the progressives wanted, and he answered to them. And I got to think that the old line Democrats, even like Bob Brady, who played a big role in creating Jim Kenney in the first place, had to be disappointed. Don't you think?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Don't you think they were disappointed in Kenney?
Oh, well, absolutely. Absolutely. But Kenny's different. Kenny is sui generis. I've said this from all along. Kenny had no established personality. He was like Zelig. Remember that old Woody Allen movie about a guy who was like human tofu? He absorbed the personalities around him. He is not a man of strength. He was Vince Fumo's boy, and was basically kept on a short leash. Kenny has had no leadership qualities. He was a compromise candidate. I think Cherelle is different. I think, first of all, she's African American. There's a big difference between the white the white Democrat who wants to pander to the white progressives, and an African American woman who doesn't have to pander to anybody. And I don't think Cherelle is one of those crazy leftists like Jamie Gautier, Kendra Brooks. I mean, these are really leftist African American women. I think Cherelle is more in line with her old patron, Marion Tasco. I think she's more in line with the, Janie Blackwell. There were Democrats and they were definitely liberals, but I don't think they're scary progressives. So I'm keeping an open mind. And I know a lot of my conservative friends and Republican friends say, no. I'm keeping an open mind.
You don't think she's going to play the race card as much as Kenny? I mean, Kenny freely played the race card, don't you admit? Don't you agree?
Yeah, of course he did.
I mean,
he played the race card. He played the gay LGBT card. He played every single possibly identity politics card he could.
He played class card. He was anti-Catholic. I mean,
oh, it was horrific. Good riddance. Get the hell out of here as soon as you can. I mean, he is not welcome in South Philadelphia. What he did with the Columbus statue thing that we were, the Dawn. He's dead in South Philly because his progressive friends in South Philly, the little boho types in Queens Village and wherever, Bella Vista, they don't like him because he didn't deliver for them, and the old line Democrats hate him, and the people like me, the old traditional conservative blue collar daughter of ethnic granddaughter of ethnic people, Italians, I hate the man. I despise the man. So he's a man without a country.
So you don't think that she's going to be a polarizer like Kenny was? I mean, Kenny was a polarizer,
Depends on the I agree. Yeah, he was. Depends on the people that she surrounds herself with.
right?
Um, it's interesting because I've talked to a lot of non people of color with respect to Cherelle Parker, and some of them say, well, she'll play the race card, this and that. An awful lot of them have said we like what we hear her saying about law and order. That was job one. That was at the top of the list for her.
Hmm.
And again, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. I gave Kenny the benefit of the doubt for about 5 minutes, but he showed himself to be out of the gate just a complete mess. Um, I would have really liked if Alan Dom or Jeff Brown had been the nominee.
Right.
In a way, in a very kind of contrarian way, I was almost prepared to have Helen Gim be the nominee because that would have been the only chance that David O would have had for winning.
Right.
To be really honest, I like David O. He's a good guy. It takes a very special kind of Republican to beat the Democratic machine. Sam
Right.
Katz almost did it. Um, Ron Castile would have been able to do it, I think, although he was unsuccessful. But I think that kind of a character.
Well,
I
Frank
don't think
Rizzo
David
almost did it. Frank Rizzo almost did it, but then he died.
exactly. Yeah, but Frank was a Democrat, but a Democrat, the kind of Democrat you and I used to be.
Right.
I mean,
But
I
his
never.
last race, he ran as a Republican.
He did. I know because he figured, well, that was the way he was going to get it, and I bet you if he had not died. But I mean, in Philadelphia, I'm even wondering if death is really a disqualification. It's like yeah, it's a little bit of a disadvantage, but hey, still run the guy. No, I just don't see David O doing it.
And then
And I
you would agree that David O is smart,
very,
he's dedicated, he's
very
experienced, he knows the city, he loves the city,
public
and
servant, military.
he's a former military, wonderful values, wonderful values, hardworking man, wonderful
Plus, a
father.
man whose life was threatened. Remember, he was knifed,
Yes,
and he
yes,
went back to work. I mean,
yes.
most other people would say, "I don't need this. I don't need this. I'm
Yeah.
leaving." So there's a
And
lot of dedication there, and
as
and
far
I'm
as I
voting
can
for him. I'm
tell,
voting for him
yeah,
in the general. I just
yeah,
don't see it happening
yeah.
though.
As far as I could tell, a man of impeccable integrity, David.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, I'm voting for him in the general.
I would be
I
voting
hope
for
all
him.
Republic. What?
I would be voting for him if I were Philadelphia, and I would be voting for David O.
Yeah, I'm going to do everything I possibly can for him. But, and I don't want to be defeatist, but I'm a realist. You got a
Right,
7-1 advantage on the
right.
Democrats. If you looked at the numbers for this election, was it like 24% of the eligible voters came to the polls?
Really, it's
It's an
dismal,
absolute
dismal.
disgrace. So there was no mandate on the part of Cherelle. And but unfortunately, you deal the cards that you're dealt. And I don't see David O winning. I will be thrilled over the moon if he does. Um,
Yes,
I just don't know. I'm hoping though that we can get Drew Murray, my friend, and I know Drew. He is running for an at-large council seat he's an endorsed Republican. He's fabulous. He has dedicated himself to the city of Philadelphia, a St. Joe's prep boy, dedicated himself to the city of Philadelphia for years and years and years. And this is a kid who grew up in the suburbs in Villanova, and he's chosen to raise his daughters. He and his wife have chosen to raise their family here in the city. So I truly hope that he is going to be able to grab one of those city council seats.
Yes. Yes. Now let me ask you this. You think that obviously Bob Brady is happy with the results. He put out a letter right after the primary reminding everybody, the Philadelphia Democrat organization is not weak, it's not dead, it's not dying, it's strong, it knows what it's doing,
Right.
it still maintains the sense of the city, and and woe to you who challenge it or try to undermine it. So, do you think that Bob Brady will be playing a significant role, let us say, even behind the scenes, but nonetheless significant, uh, in the Cherelle Parker administration?
I think just by virtue of the fact of who he is and how
Mm.
long he's been around and who he knows, the
The buttons he can push.
yeah, I mean the sheer weight of his power, his authority, his influence. And again, I really like the guy. I think that message, Danny, that he sent out, it wasn't a message to Republicans. That was a message to progressive Democrats saying, get in line. You saw what happened. You see what's happening. You're not going to hijack this election. You stand back, Helen. Stand back to a certain degree. Reinhardt, stand back. I call them the Crayola color haired, nose ringed, tattooed youngsters who are out there thinking they can seize the reins of control. They
Yeah.
can't. They're not schooled in Philadelphia politics, and they think they are because
Yeah.
they're very popular and very successful on Twitter. But and I love that, when you leave social media, you
Yeah.
realize there's a whole real world outside. And that real world that went to vote isn't on Twitter.
He was saying to them, in effect, well, he was saying, you don't know this town. We do.
That's
You
right.
only understand the people that you talk to, the echo chamber that you live in.
That's
But
right.
we know the whole town, and we've been at this a lot longer than you. So buzz off.
That's exactly it, Dan. That was a big theme in this primary, and I amplified it. You had outsiders. Helen
Yes.
Gim, for all of the fact that she's been here since she graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 19 whatever it is 93. She
Mhm.
came to this city as a fully formed adult. She was, I think, 20 or 21 when she came to Philly. She's been here for 3 decades. But I will tell you, there are people there are people who have been here since the age of 15. And unless you were diapered in the city of Philadelphia, you're an outsider. Now, I happen to have been born in Baltimore. I was 1 month old when I came to Philadelphia. I don't have the cred that someone whose grandmother and grandfather and everybody. I
Right,
mean, I'm not a native born Philadelphian, and
right.
yet I've spent 60 and a half years of my life here. But we appreciate and we value and we reward longevity and authenticity. So yeah, Helen is not authentic. Helen was bringing all these people from outside of Philadelphia in, people who didn't pronounce the word water as water.
Right.
Um, she didn't understand the mistake that she was making.
We've often observed, you could call it provincial. Another way of putting it is that Philadelphia is a small town hiding in a big city,
Yeah, absolutely.
and and
We're
and
neighborhoods. What
yeah,
parish? What parish are you from? You know,
right.
not
What
what
corner?
neighborhood.
What street
What parish
corner?
did you go to? Right. What
What
street?
street corner is another big thing.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
um, and that's a very very powerful thing, but you have to wonder, Christine, and of course, Bob Brady, I don't know how old he is, but he's not young.
Mm-mm.
I got to figure, was he in his 70s now?
I'd say he's probably in his early 70s, maybe.
Okay. you gotta wonder if this could maybe be, though, the last hurrah of the old line Democrat machine. Could this be the last hurrah?
It could be, although a lot of the machine are my age or younger. You know, you some of them are in jail right now, but you've got, you know, the Bobby Heenans and
Yeah,
the you know, the Johnny Doc
yeah.
mentored a lot of people, and there are a lot of people who still owe him allegiance and fealty, who are not in jail right now.
Right.
And
But Johnny Duck himself maybe wouldn't have waited jail then, right?
oh
He
yeah,
was
yeah. I
convicted,
mean,
right? Wasn't he convicted? He
yeah,
was.
I think it's on appeal, but yeah, definitely. I think he's out on on bond while he's awaiting the appeal.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't see the Democratic machine folding in the near future.
Okay.
Um, I do see that there are insurgent progressives, but Dan, I I'm so happy because I really think the takeaway from this primary is not that conservatives won. They didn't. They won't win in Philadelphia, and sadly, they won't win in Delaware County now, where
Oh, wasn't that sad? Yeah.
a pro baby butchery candidate, Heather Boyd, beat a fairly, you know, a decent Katie Ford,
Yeah.
GOP candidate for that House seat that would have shifted the balance of power back to the GOP um,
Yes.
House in Harrisburg, but that didn't happen. But I do not see these insurgent progressives, these social justice warrior Democrats of the Helen Gim vintage, and to a certain extent of the Rebecca Reinhart vintage as well. I don't see them taking control. And you know, I think it would be very damaging to the city if they do. I would much rather have. I know we're talking about the Democratic machine, and I know again, your friends, my friends, people are saying, "Oh my God, the Democrats, they ruin everything, and we need to get them out of office." Honestly, they're the firewall at this point against those insurgent progressives, because that word progressive is really misleading. They are socialists, they are borderline radical zealot
Right.
anarchists, to be really quite honest. They want to burn the system down. Helen Gim is a hostile woman. She has personal vendettas. Um, she is, thank God, I truly hope she's out of office now. People were saying, well, do you think that Josh Shapiro would appoint her to replace John Fetterman? Number one, John Fetterman is still in office. Number two, I don't like Josh, but I don't think he's stupid enough to take a radical like Helen Gim and plop her into that position. I think he's
Yeah.
smart enough to get a more moderate institutional Democrat for that. So I just want Helen to pack up her kit and go back to Seattle or go back to Ohio and leave us in peace. Go away, Helen Gim.
But
Done.
everybody says she's not going to go away, Christine. I mean,
I know.
she has said she's not going to go away, and
She's like a rash.
I said she has the potential to become the Stacey Abrams of Philadelphia.
True,
Okay,
but where's Stacey Abrams now? Is anybody talking
not
about
in
Stacey?
any
She
office.
lost her election. I mean, who's
She
talking about
lost.
Stacey
What is
Abrams?
she lost 2 or 3 elections?
Yeah,
Okay, and she has the potential to become uh, the um, what's the guy in Texas who kept running and running and running again?
oh God, Beto O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto the
Okay,
faux
there's another
Latino.
one. Okay, another firebrand that hasn't been able to be elected, but he
Right,
keeps coming back. Beto O'Rourke.
it's true.
But we'll have to see what she decides to do next. Maybe they'll. I don't know what they're going to do with her. I don't know. Maybe Bob Brady can figure out something to do with her.
I don't
to
think Bob has
her,
anything to do with Helen.
but maybe, but you, in other words, you don't think like that giving her some kind of nondescript job would be sufficient to sort of no, neutralize her, to neutralize her.
I don't think any. I think the way you neutralize her is ignore her.
Just
I
ignore.
think I think that her brand has been severely damaged. I think she's got a very deep but narrow base of supporters. If you look at them also on Twitter and social media, they are the most graceless, the most petulant people that I've ever seen in politics. They're angry, they're whiny, I mean, they're pulling the race card out of their back ends because, Helen didn't run on being an Asian American. To her credit, the one thing I will say about Helen Gim is that she didn't make a big deal about being a woman of color. She really didn't. But her supporters did. Her supporters are like,
Right.
oh, she'll be the first. But the fact that David O is also Korean and would be the first Korean mayor of Philadelphia, that didn't matter. Had to be their flavor of ethnicity, So I think she's gonna keep at it. She'll try, but I will tell you, this was a huge defeat, personal defeat for Helen Gim. Because she was the face of the progressives in the city of Philadelphia. Rebecca Reinhardt, much, much less. Rebecca was more of an institution.
Rebecca Reinhardt came across as a reformer,
Yeah,
okay?
and a wonky policy.
But to me, we never saw a three-dimensional human being there.
Exactly.
And she came across largely as a technocrat. And I didn't understand why these former mayors endorsed her. Um, when the Democrat organization was endorsing, or at least many ward leaders, and presumably Brady himself, backed Cherelle, and even Kenny said, although he didn't come out and endorse her, he said he voted for Cherelle. He said he voted for Cherelle. I'm not sure whether Cherelle thought that was a boon to her campaign or a bust. Okay,
I was going to say that nobody wants to be liked by Jim Kenney. Jim Kenney is the kiss of death.
Pressured by the media. He was pressured by the media to find out how he voted, and he said, "All right, well, I voted for Cherelle Parker, although this is not an endorsement." It was a weird answer. I thought it was a weird answer because you voted for her, so that's an endorsement, okay?
I think what it was an insult to Alan Dom. But Dom and Kenny have a very fractious relationship. Kenny can't stand Dom. Alan Dom is a very successful businessman and was a thorn in his side on city council because Dom was not able to be bought. He had no the same with Jeff Brown, but Kenny just has a personal. Kenny and Helen Gim are very much in the same mold in that they are both very petulant, petty people who hold grudges, personal grudges, and that can cause problems with them with the larger picture. So I think Kenny knew that he's irrelevant, and I think he knows that nobody really gives a damn who he votes for, what he thinks, what he's saying. And so he just decided to sort of like stick it in with Dom and saying, I voted for Cherelle. Like big whoop. Cherelle's like, it's okay. Never mind. You don't have to.
Well, she obviously was getting some good advice from people. I don't know. I'm not privy. I'm not that involved. Not involved in Philadelphia politics, so I don't know who was advising her, who was whispering in her ear, who's going to be in her inner sanctum, so to speak. But I think she ought to stay in touch with Bob Brady, because Bob Brady, like him or not, and I don't know the man personally, but I've never been a fan of that kind of political boss, if you will. But like him or not, he can pick up the phone and call Joe Biden like that,
Yeah,
just like that.
he's very well connected,
So,
and
and call Joe
I
Biden.
do like him. I don't know him. I mean, I've met him a couple times. I was on Inside Story with him like a month ago, but I've known him. I've known of him for many years. I met him at the Lanark Diner once or twice, and yeah, he is the head of a machine in the city, but he's a human being, and I think that I will say one thing, Dan. I think he truly loves this city. I think he has a genuine, the way that you love Camden, your Camden from when you were growing up.
And that I grew up in, yes.
Uh, Brady loves, plus he's part Italian. Brady, and he's part Irish. He loves the city. And I don't think that some of the other candidates that were running truly loved the city. I know Helen didn't love the city. I think Rebecca liked the city and wanted it to work well. I think Alan Dom adopted this city and made it his home for the last 50 years. I think he did love the city. Jeff Brown did a lot. I have to say one quick thing about Jeff Brown. Tonight, when I was taking my walk, I was down near Fifth and Pine. And in Philadelphia, there are not a lot of supermarkets in Center City. You've got CVS's, you've got pharmacies, you got these little tiny little like Rittenhouse market and things like that, where things are really expensive. There aren't any supermarkets. And I'm walking around at Fifth and Pine, and all of a sudden I see an Acme. I'm like, an Acme! I was so excited. I like danced across the street, went to the Acme, a supermarket. And it dawned on me what Jeff Brown did. He gave that feeling to African Americans, to Black people who live in what you call the food deserts, where they live in areas where there are no supermarkets, where they have those little corner stores where, you know, you're going to get your whatever, your cigarettes and your like the mom and pop kind of place, but no place where you could have a supermarket. And he really walked the walk and talked the talk. That's why I'm sad in a way that he did not become the nominee, because when it wasn't a question of being mayor, when no one was looking, he was doing the heavy lifting.
Well,
And
maybe
I know what it means to have a supermarket in your neighborhood.
you do have that new giant at 8th and Market, the giant heirloom market, which is beautiful. It's
That's
beautiful.
true. That's
That's
very nice.
beautiful.
But there's something about an Acme, an old
Oh, I know.
Acme,
Yeah, no, I know.
Lancaster brand meats.
Maybe Jeff Brown should have run for city council, you see.
Totally agree. I think that's the advice Dom gave him. You know, try city council. Don't jump right into the mayor's race.
Right. And I think if Jeff Brown had stayed out, although his final vote total was so tiny in single digits, I don't know that it would have been significant. It would have significantly affected the election had he not run.
If everybody who voted for Brown voted for Dom, I think Dom would have edged Helen out for third place, but he would not have won, because, you know, Cherelle was way out with 33 or 34% of the vote. Then it was Rebecca, and Rebecca and Helen were very close. Rebecca, I think, was 22%, and Helen was around 20%. And then Alan was 14%. And I think Jeff was maybe 9% or 6%. But if everyone who had voted for Brown, because they were very similar, had voted for Dom, Helen would have even been lower down. And she was lower. She was number 4 for a good part of that evening.
Now,
I'm so happy.
You and I were talking about if Rebecca Reinhardt had not run, that would have certainly, it seems like that would have certainly helped Dom.
Would have, I agree. I mean, people were saying, oh, she would have, or her votes would have gone to Helen. And I disagree. And I think I agree with what you just said. I think Dom and Rebecca split the vote of the technocrats, of the business people, of the people who thought, you know, wonkish policy kind of folk.
Right.
I do. I think you're right. I think if Rebecca had not run, I think Alan would have given Cherelle a run for her money, and who knows, he may
Yeah.
have actually beaten her.
And if Dom had not run, that would have helped Rebecca
Definitely.
by the same token.
Yeah. Again, people were saying, "Oh, Rebecca is a progressive," and she and Helen shared the plurality of the vote. Rebecca's not that kind of progressive. She's not the progressive, the
No.
crazy, zealous kind of person. And I think you're right. I think it was more Helen was out there in her own little universe. Cherelle had tied up the vote of the mighty Northwest machine. The old the Mount Airy and that kind of Northwest Philadelphia African American deep root demographic, and then Dom and Rebecca are the policy wonks, and Jeff Brown was sort of like this kind of quisling who did a lot of good things for the city, but he didn't have the experience, and he didn't have the
You
political
don't
experience.
have the heft, the
Right,
gravitas to run for mayor. He
right,
just didn't have it.
right.
And if you
Yeah,
look at the map, he didn't carry hardly anywhere. I mean, if you look at the map, Alan Dom carried pretty much all of the Northeast.
yeah.
Although you look at the sections of the city that Dom
And good
carried.
sections of Center City too.
Yeah, but Rebecca took a big chunk of Center City from him. She
Yeah,
took a big chunk of Center City, which should have been his. That
yeah.
should have been his. Okay, Center City.
I think also, we were talking about race. I think gender definitely played a role here.
Oh, absolutely.
You
I
wanted
mean,
you wanted that
Dom
female
came up,
100th mayor of the. I don't
no,
care. I don't care.
gender played a very big role. I might say as well, Dom came out of South Philadelphia with a nice vote. He took much of South Philadelphia, which
Yeah,
did not surprise me. But many people say that now the areas that I've said that Dom carried, he might not have carried them by significant enough margins, you see, to pull it off. Whereas, like you say, Cherelle, the areas that she carried in the Northwest, she may well have very carried them by lopsided margins,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
which made a difference. So
Right.
while Dom carried significant areas of the city, area-wise, if you look at the map, a lot of it is his, but he may not have carried it by the big enough numbers
Exactly.
to pull it off, see.
Cherelle
Um,
got her people to the polls,
yeah,
and they were very concentrated in those specific areas that we were talking about, and also parts of West Philly. But the majority of Center City was divided between Gim, Dom, and Reinhardt. And with the lion's share, I think you're right, going to Reinhardt. Had
yes,
had Helen not been in the race, I think Reinhardt would have won. Had Helen, I think Helen took votes from Reinhardt. Reinhardt took votes from Dom. I don't think she took votes from Helen. And Cherelle benefited from that. They kind of cannibalized each other. And Cherelle was able, because her block was really solid.
but
There
here's
were
the other thing. Cherelle came across as the most authentic candidate,
definitely,
the most real candidate. He
definitely.
did not seem to be um, a candidate who was created by consultants.
No,
Uh, she did not seem to be a manufactured candidate. And I think that certainly came across in the debates.
yeah.
And she didn't have a lot of TV ads either. She didn't do a lot of TV. It was a very grassroots, you know, down at the grassroots level campaign. And but
You make
when
a good point, Dan. Can I just
yeah,
say one quick thing?
yeah, yeah,
The polling, it just goes to show you that you cannot gauge the opinions of African American voters from polls. They
mhm,
do not respond to polls.
Right.
There was this lopsided idea that Helen was in the lead or Rebecca was in the lead, because why? Because the sort of person that's going to vote for them, the college educated professor at Penn, or the technocrat, they're like, oh yes, I'm voting for this person. I'll answer all of your questions and all of this. But African Americans don't do that. And my really good friend, John Price, he's a brilliant man, conservative African American, moderate African American on Twitter. You should follow him. He's brilliant, and he said the same thing. He said that they completely ignored the African American vote because they just said, well, all right, so these are the numbers of people for Helen, these are the numbers of people for Rebecca, these are the numbers of people for Dom. And that was that sub iceberg vote. The tip of the iceberg is Helen or Rebecca. That huge part of the iceberg that you can't see were the Northwest voters, were the African American voters
Yes.
who came out for Cherelle because they wanted to
Yes.
vote for her, specifically
Yes.
for her.
And that certain visceral thing, that certain element of authenticity that you've got to bring forth, the thing that makes you credible and even is like part of the sort of formula, if you will, of charisma. You either have it or you don't. And if you have it, you've got to push your handlers and the consultants and the creators of the ads aside, and you've got to say, look, get out of here. Get out of here. Turn the camera on and just be yourself and be yourself. Whether she did that or not, she came across that way.
Right. Right.
Whereas the spots that I saw for, in particular for Reinhardt and for Dom and for Jeff Brown, they were all too formulaic. Formulaic.
Whoever was whoever was prepping Rebecca for her commercials and her appearances did a very poor job, because every single time she was using her hands and she was slicing her hands like little machetes. Now you're Italian, I'm Italian. We use our hands a lot, but hers were like, they were mechanical. And she's like, I am going to do this. And I am from I have my daughter in the schools of Philadelphia and I love this city. And I'm like, look at it, like jujitsu. It was so distracting. I'm like, oh my God, she's horrible.
Because it did not seem natural.
Yeah, I know.
Natural. And when you see Kamala Harris, she keeps going like this with her palms out, Somebody told her that this was welcoming. They told her to do this. It's welcoming. So when she talks, she keeps going and mechanical. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because you've been, it's not you, it's somebody that's coaching you. And the people, it's hard to fool people when you go on television. You're either natural or you aren't.
I'm also going to say it's hard to fool Philadelphians. Philadelphians are una razza aparte, a very special race. And when I say race, I'm talking about just type of person and mentality.
Right.
You cannot fool a Philadelphian. You can listen. We know frauds when we see them, and we might vote for a fraud, and we might go along with what a fraud is saying, but we know that they're frauds. And there were several candidates that came off as fake, as you said.
Or it's less than authentic. Yeah, less than authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Cherelle was on the debate stage and was asked about safe injection sites, she didn't hesitate for a minute. She said, no, I'm not for safe injection sites. Right. When they asked her about stop and frisk, she said, I'm for it. Now, I think a modified version of it, but nobody else seemed to be in favor of it. This is an African American woman who lives in an area where she's going to hear gunfire outside of her window. And somebody on Rittenhouse Square might hear that too. And somebody like me down in, in the neighborhood will hear that too. But I mean, she knows what it is to send a kid out to school in gunfire,
And she wasn't afraid to say it. She wasn't afraid to say it.
And I think that was really the thing that tipped the scales in her favor, because she spoke to, it was her personal experience. And Helen Gim, is the passionaria. She goes out there and she stands in front of ICE with a bullhorn, which, by the way, really pisses me off as an immigration lawyer, because she's doing more damage to immigrants with her loud mouth and that bullhorn than any ICE agent she thinks is hostile or going after them. But I mean, you've got again, you've got this woman whose husband is a very well-heeled attorney. She's extremely affluent, and she's trying to pretend to be a woman of the people. She can't pull off that FDR kind of thing. I'm rich, but I feel the people. I'm Eva Peron. Rebecca didn't pretend to be of the people. Rebecca was, again, I don't think she was inauthentic. I think she was authentically who she was, but that wasn't a person touchy-feely of the people, She was Hillary-esque, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Very confident, but
yes.
Hillary-esque,
Yes. I've seen candidates where I've seen them on television, and my feeling was, well, gee, you seem like a nice person. I think that I sort of like you. I agree with what you're saying for the most part, but you just don't seem real to me. You're not, in other words, or you don't seem real enough.
Right.
I want to really get the juice of you. Where is it? Show it to me. This is what I'm looking for. And a lot of times you just don't get it. Now, obviously, you do get it with Donald Trump. You do get it. Sometimes you get too much of it. You get too much of it. Okay, where you say, "Oh my God, okay, I think I've seen more of you than I ever wanted to see. I know more of you now than I maybe bargained for." But
you can hide some stuff now. Thank you.
Yeah, but you do get a sense that what you see is what you get. It's all right there. It's right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so few candidates are able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why he was elected the first time around. I think people looked at that and they said, whoa, this is an unfiltered human being. I like what he's saying. What you see is what you get. And there was no disconnect between the Donald Trump of the 1980s and 90s and early aughts, the developer, and this guy who was really speaking to blue collar workers and disaffected Democrats, to a different, in a different way, but to the same extent. Ronald Reagan was that way. Ronald Reagan was incredibly charismatic and was able, all the while being a part of the establishment, the GOP establishment, although he himself also was an insurgent, if you remember.
Was an insurgent, yes, absolutely. The GOP establishment hated him in the beginning.
Absolutely.
They hated him.
Who was it that he challenged? Was it Ford? Who was the one that he, in the primary, that he lost to? Would have been maybe 76. Yeah, it was Ford. I think he challenged Ford, and then obviously Carter won the nomination. But Reagan had that innate, natural ability, just like Trump does. Very different characters,
right?
But charismatic. And do not underestimate. You know better than I do because you've been doing this for so long. Don't underestimate charisma. People don't always look at your resume. They look at how you make them feel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to come to the conclusion here because we're coming up on an hour. It's been wonderful as always.
Yeah, I missed you. We got to do this more often.
we should do it more often, and people always tell us we should do it more often. But I don't want us to become overexposed, Christine. Uh, we
But that ship sailed
we
for
don't want
me,
to
Dan.
wear out our welcome. We don't want to wear out our welcome, right?
Right, 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 right. You like us. You really like us. Yeah.
And then people might get tired of us. And the
So
other
what? So
thing,
we'll talk to each other. We're Italian. We're fine. We'll bring in Lisa DePaula. We love her so much. We'll bring
we
her in and
I
we'll
think
do
that
a three-way.
maybe the next time we do this, we're going to bring in Lisa
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
both adore her.
We adore her. Maybe we could get Victor to come on too. Victor Fiorillo.
Yes, I've always tried to get Victor, but Victor tells me he doesn't like to do TV. Um,
He's
but
shy. He's too humble because
is
he's
that what it
very
is?
good. He's very charismatic.
I would love to have. Wouldn't it be fun if we had Lisa and Victor, and you and
I
I and Lisa and Victor?
I would love that. That would be top notch. Well, let's get Lisa on the next time, and then we'll work our way up to Victor.
And we're supposed to do dinner with Lisa at some point.
Yeah, in
Um,
fact, we got it. We got to get the date. Well, let's make it for June. We were looking at the different dates, so
we-
I'll reach out to Linda. Yeah, I'll reach out to Lisa and get the
okay.
dates from her, and then from you, and then we're doing it in Haddonfield. I want to go back to that place
Yes.
in Haddonfield.
We have a place in Haddonfield that we recommend everybody. It's called, I think it's called Mo- Monte Mare. It means the
Monte Mare.
Monte Mare means the mountain and the sea, does it? Or the land and sea?
Yes, it does. It does.
Something like that.
Mountain and the
It's,
sea.
the what? Land and
You were right. Mountain and the
sea.
sea. I mean, I guess colloquially, land and sea.
Okay.
But
We
yeah,
highly recommend it. And we'll be getting together there in June. June is a good month, as I told you. Let's try to zero in on a date
yeah.
that
Do it
you
this
and Lisa can come over.
Absolutely. We'll Uber it. Lisa and I'll take an Uber over. I usually take the I like that the Lindenwald high speed line. If I give a plug to that, I'll take the Lindenwald high speed line. I will not take the subway now in Philly or the L
I
with it
don't blame you. I
happening there.
don't blame you.
Yeah, but
I don't blame you. Thank God you're not doing that, Christine. You made me feel a lot better because I worry about you on the
and I'm
subway.
getting closer to moving near you guys. I'm serious.
Oh, I hope you do. I hope you do.
I know. I love my city, but I don't know if you saw what I posted on Facebook. You probably didn't. I'm walking home tonight, and right there at 13th and Locust, they repainted the rainbow in the neighborhood in the street, right? This giant rainbow. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking to myself, like, buffo job, Jim Kenny. That was job one. We wanted to make sure we got that rainbow in so that while you're dodging bullets as you're dying, at least you can get a momentary smile as you plot. Oh, look, a nice rainbow. Crazy.
You're already number one, repainting the rainbow.
Yep. That's it.
And
That was
that
it. The rainbow
that
is back in the
I
neighborhood.
think we will end on that note because that says a lot about where we are right now and the current state of affairs in this country. And that's something for everybody to think about. That becomes a big priority. And yet we box in and cover up the statue of Columbus in South Philadelphia.
Yes, we
So,
do.
and we had to fight, okay, on that.
Chrissy's free. Chrissy's free. I walk by him every day and I just smile. And I think every single progressive who fought against him has to see him standing there. And I hope they're constipated or they're sick or butterflies in their stomach. I just hope it screws with their mind to see that statue up there. A nudge.
Okay, that's the note we're going to end on, Christine. It's been a wonderful chat as always. Thank you so much.
Love you, Danny. Give my love to
Thank you.
Carol, okay?
I certainly will. Bye.
Night night.